On a bunk bed that's installed in the back of the truck, my husband, Dylan Gallagher, kisses me passionately while groping me incessantly. Honey, I'm definitely taking you with me to work all the time. I can only squirm awkwardly beneath him. Be gentle with me. Geez. Then I look in the direction of the top bunk, where a certain someone is spying on us from behind the bed. Chapter 1. Honey, how long will you be gone this time? I lay on the bed, catching my breath for a moment before getting up to help my husband, Dylan Gallagher, pack. Dylan was a long-haul trucker. He spent more time on the road than he did at home. Each trip took at least a week, sometimes half a month before I saw him again. When we first got married, I thought it was a great job, good money, and the chance to see the country. But over the years, the reality of being a trucker's wife started to sink in. With Dylan gone so often, I was constantly left alone. I was a woman with needs. When I was younger, it didn't bother me as much, but as I got older, those desires only grew stronger. Now that I was in my 30s, prime years for a woman, seeing Dylan only a few times a month was becoming unbearable. Watching my friends go home to their partners every night, I couldn't help but feel envious. To make matters worse, Dylan's constant driving and long hours of sitting without exercise had worn him out. He was only in his 30s, but his stamina was already failing. On the rare occasions he was home, he couldn't satisfy me. I was in my best years. I shouldn't feel like I was living the life of a widow. The intimacy we just shared was dull, but I faked my satisfaction just to protect his ego. The route is a bit longer this time, Dylan replied. It'll be at least 2 weeks round trip. 2 weeks. Not only was the quality lacking, but now the frequency was dropping too. Why don't you come with me this time? He asked. What? He wanted me to go on the road with him? I looked at him, surprised. In the past, I'd begged him to let me tag along so I could see new places, but he always refused. He used to say the company assigned him a partner, and having me there would be inconvenient. What changed? Well, I've seen some of the other guys bringing their wives along. It's nice to have a hot meal during the day and someone to hold at night. It sounds a lot better than being alone. So that was his angle. It seemed I wasn't the only one tired of our long-distance arrangement. I was about to agree when a thought struck me. If I go, what about Raul? Raul Anderson was Dylan's partner. On long hauls, they took turns driving. Forget about him. He'll be driving, and we'll be in the back doing our thing. If that's not exciting enough for you, I'll tell him to pull over so he can join in. What are you talking about? I hissed, covering his mouth. Truckers, especially the long-haul guys, had a habit of talking dirty to pass the time, but I couldn't believe he was saying such things about me. I was mortified. Yet, despite the shame, the image Dylan planted in my mind began to take root. 2 strong men, one in front, one behind. I pressed my hands against my burning cheeks, forcing the thoughts away, and hurried to finish packing. You little minx. You actually like the idea, don't you? The next day, I trailed behind Dylan with my luggage. Once we got in the truck, I noticed Raul was already there. Dylan had brought him over for dinner once before, so we weren't strangers. He was several years younger than Dylan and far more muscular. Standing at least 6 feet 1 inch, he seemed to fill the entire driver's seat. Raul greeted me warmly. Hey, Maya. Thanks for joining us on this run. Sorry to put you to work. I smiled politely. It's just some cooking. It's no trouble at all. Well, I'm looking forward to getting a taste of you on this trip. Oh, it's no big deal, really, I replied. But as the words left my mouth, something about his sentence fell off. Dylan slapped Raul on the shoulder with a loud thud. You brat, I'm letting you share her cooking, not her don't even dream about it. Tonight, you can just keep your eyes on the road and listen to us having a good time. Chapter 2. Okay. Maya, make sure you scream nice and loud so I can enjoy the show too, Raul said. They said long-haul truckers were a crude bunch. I was seeing it firsthand now. I couldn't believe the things coming out of their mouths. My face was burning a deep crimson. For the rest of the day, I lay on the sleeper berth in the back while the two men chatted up front. Most of their conversation consisted of raunchy jokes and dirty talk. I tried to act uninterested, but they were so loud that every word reached my ears. I didn't know if men really used that kind of talk to relieve stress, but I was genuinely stirred. Those blunt, unfiltered words drifted through the air like feathers, brushing against my skin and teasing my senses. The frustration I'd felt with Dylan the night before started to boil over. Lying there, I felt a tingle spread from head to toe. I couldn't wait for nightfall, so Dylan and I could go at it. Once wasn't going to be enough. I wanted much, much more. My eyes involuntarily drifted toward the two men. From years of sitting, Dylan had developed a bit of a gut. His double chin wobbled slightly with every bump in the road. He never exercised, so it was no wonder his stamina had hit rock bottom. Then my gaze shifted to Raoul. Even just sitting there, he had the raw, predatory presence of a wild animal. He had broad shoulders, corded muscles in his arms, and thick, powerful thighs. Every inch of him radiated a masculine pheromone so thick it filled the cramped cab, making my head spin. I couldn't think of anything except the scandalous images flashing through my mind. I swallowed hard. Realizing just how far my thoughts had strayed, I felt another wave of heat hit my face. Right then, Raoul turned around. I felt his gaze drop directly to my chest. He was staring so intently that it felt like his hands were about to reach out and tear my clothes open. I turned away, my heart hammering against my ribs. Was he doing that on purpose? What did he want to do to me? I spent the rest of the day in a daze until Dylan finally pulled into a service station late that night. As soon as the engine cut out, he reached back and pulled me toward him, giving my rear a hard squeeze. "You've been waiting for this all day, haven't you, you little minx?" At home, I would have played along with some dirty talk of my own, but with another man in the truck, the words died in my throat. I could only bury my face in his chest, letting my hands do the talking. "What's wrong? You're loud enough at home. Don't go quiet on me now. Let me hear you." Dylan slapped my thigh. He had a short fuse and would get angry if things didn't go his way, so I had no choice but to play along and let out a few soft moans. Even though the cab was pitch black, I felt like a pair of eyes was watching me from the top bunk. The sheer thrill of it made my skin crawl. Every movement made my heart race. Dylan didn't share my discomfort. If anything, he seemed more fired up than usual, which made me suspect the only reason he brought me along was to show off in front of Raoul. When he was finished, Dylan drifted off into a satisfied, snoring sleep. But I was still restless. I hadn't brought any of my toys along, so I had to resort to squeezing the blanket between my legs to dull the nagging ache inside me. "Maya, are you still awake?" Suddenly, Raoul peered down from the top bunk, his eyes locked onto mine in the darkness. I froze, terrified to move an inch. "I'm just about to sleep. Are you still up too?" "How am I supposed to sleep after listening to you the whole time?" My face suddenly felt like it was on fire, and my heart raced. What was he playing at? Was he hitting on me? I didn't dare answer. I dove under the blanket and heard nothing but a faint chuckle from above. That night, my sleep was fitful. I dreamed of Dylan and our earlier intimacy. But then, another man appeared, and the two of them had me trapped between them. Chapter 3. I woke up feeling utterly exhausted. Dylan was already at the wheel, driving through the morning. I stayed in the bunk, quietly watching the two men, but I found my eyes drifting toward Raoul far more often today. The truck was equipped with a tiny kitchenette, enough to make a few fresh dishes. I started prepping breakfast, though my mind was miles away. Suddenly, Raoul crowded into the small space beside me. "Need a hand with that, Maya?" The cabin was incredibly cramped. With a man of his size pressing in, I was practically pinned into the corner. Whether it was intentional or not, his thigh brushed firmly against mine. The heat radiating through his pants made my head spin, and my focus slipped. The knife caught the tip of my finger. "Maya, are you okay?" Before I could react, Raoul grabbed my hand and pulled my finger into his mouth. He sucked on it firmly, his tongue swirling around the small cut. Terrified, I tried to pull away, but his grip was like iron. I froze, glancing nervously at Dylan's back as he drove. The sheer tension made my legs go weak. I looked at Raoul with pleading eyes, begging him to stop. With a smirk, he leaned down, his lips brushing against my ear. Later tonight, I'm going to get a real taste of you. The words were barely a whisper, yet they hit me like a bolt of lightning. Even after he moved back to the passenger seat, I stood there in a daze. Strangely, I didn't feel disgusted by the harassment. Instead, I felt, a while after dinner, Dylan mentioned he was getting drowsy and needed a nap. He told Raoul to take over and asked me to sit in the passenger seat to keep him company so he wouldn't fall asleep. I knew the drill, so I climbed up front and struck up a casual conversation. Soon, Dylan's snores began to echo from the back. We talked in low voices for a while, but then, to my surprise, Raoul pulled the truck off the highway and brought it to a stop. I looked at him, confused. "Are you going to sleep too?" He nodded with a smirk. "Yeah. Do you want to join me?" These guys really didn't know when to stop with the jokes. I glared at him. "If you're tired, go lie down." Then I heard a click. He had reached over and unbuckled my seatbelt. I looked up and met his gaze. It was searing, filled with an unmasked hunger, like a predator staring down a long-awaited meal, ready to devour every last bit. My heart fluttered. Before I could say a word, he lunged toward me. "Don't worry, I slipped Dylan something. He won't be waking up. Maya, just give in to me. I'm losing my mind wanting you." Dylan's steady snoring filled the air. I couldn't believe it. Raoul had actually drugged him just to sleep with me. He moved with an overwhelming force, pinning my shoulders back. I was helpless as he pressed me hard against the window. My mind went completely blank. All I could process was the sound of Dylan snoring and the sight of Raoul looming over me. My clothes were easily pushed aside. His hand moved lower, finding its mark. The sensation was electric, a jolt of pure pleasure that sent shivers raced through my blood. With Dylan just inches away, every nerve in my body was stretched to the breaking point. I curled into myself, trying to shrink away. No, not here. But Raoul only moved faster. The wet, rhythmic sounds of his touch filled the small space, the pace becoming a blur. I couldn't hold back anymore. A wave of intense heat gathered from every corner of my body and suddenly crashed down. My muscles went into a violent spasm, and my toes curled tight as a flood of release swept through every cell. The sheer intensity of it brought tears to my eyes. I felt like I was on the verge of fainting. My vulnerability only seemed to fuel Raoul's fire. "Maya." He pushed my underwear aside and pulled open my lips with his rough hands.